The appearance had never been an ordinary engagement. Behind closed doors, lawyers, advisors, and palace officials had spent weeks negotiating where the brothers would stand, what they could say, and which family wounds were forbidden to mention. One condition mattered more than all the others. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel for more hidden royal stories, palace secrets, and dramatic moments the monarchy would rather keep behind closed doors. The joint appearance had been built through months of quiet negotiation. William's household spoke to Harry's representatives through carefully chosen intermediaries, while event organizers waited for both sides to agree on details that would normally have taken only days. Senior palace officials watched every exchange. They knew this was not simply about placing two brothers on the same stage. It was about preventing years of anger from breaking through in front of the world. William agreed only after he was promised that the event would remain focused on its official purpose. There would be no discussion of private family conflict, no surprise accusations, and no attempt to reopen old wounds. Harry accepted restrictions that would have been unthinkable during his earlier royal life. Press questions would be controlled. Unscripted remarks were forbidden. Private conversations with guests would be limited. He was not to mention his mother, palace briefings, or the treatment of his wife. The rules humiliated them both. William hated that he had to communicate with his own brother through lawyers and advisors. To him, every extra condition felt like proof that Harry could no longer be trusted. Harry saw something even colder. He was being handled like a threat to the crown rather than a son of the king, and a man who had once stood beside William through their darkest years. A joint statement was written with painful care. It had to suggest unity without pretending there had been forgiveness. Even the phrase shared commitment caused concern, because it might make the public believe the brothers were closer than they truly were. William then insisted that they arrive separately, wait in different rooms, and leave through different routes. The public would see cooperation. The palace would preserve distance. Harry's team asked for one private conversation before the appearance. William refused. He said anything important could wait until their duties were complete. That refusal left Harry with no chance to judge his brother's mood or explain what he intended to say. The most important rule was hidden inside a confidential agreement. Neither brother could change his prepared remarks without approval from both offices. Then, on the night before the event, Harry requested a small addition. It referred to truth, memory, and the cost of institutional silence. William's advisors saw an attack immediately. Harry's team insisted the words related only to the purpose of the gathering. After tense exchanges, Harry agreed to remove one sentence, and William allowed the speech to proceed. But hours later, an unknown palace source claimed Harry had kept a second, unapproved version. By the time that warning reached William, suspicion had already become fear. He was told that Harry might ignore the agreement and use the appearance to deliver words the palace could never take back. The warning alone might not have destroyed the appearance, but the sealed briefing placed on William's desk contained something more alarming, a claim that Harry was carrying evidence linked to one of the monarchy's most protected secrets. Shortly before midnight, William received a briefing so sensitive that no digital copy was allowed to remain on palace systems. Inside was a name both brothers had spent their lives carrying, a disputed royal object, and a warning that Harry might force the future king to choose between family and crown. The name was Diana. The object linked to her was not one of the famous jewels seen at grand royal occasions. It was smaller, more private, and far more dangerous because of what it represented. Hidden within its history were personal markings, quiet family meaning, and the suggestion that Diana had wanted certain possessions to pass directly to both of her sons. Its true value did not come from gold or stones. It came from memory. Palace officials had kept the item away from public discussion for years because any serious questions about it could reopen a painful chapter. People might begin asking how Diana's belongings had been divided after her death, who had controlled them, which pieces had been loaned, and whether anything meant for William and Harry had been withheld. Harry had reportedly raised the matter more than once. He believed the keepsake had never been intended to disappear into a private royal collection. In his mind, it belonged equally to two sons who had already lost enough. William did not see the issue so simply. He had been advised that objects connected to Diana now carried a wider importance. Some were no longer merely family possessions. They had become part of royal history, protected by rules that stretched beyond private grief. The sealed briefing claimed Harry had obtained copies of old correspondence referring to the disputed object. It warned that he might mention those papers during the joint appearance, perhaps without naming the item directly. Even a vague reference could unleash international headlines, legal questions, and fresh claims that the palace had controlled Diana's memory after her death. William's fear was not only for the monarchy. He also feared that Harry might turn their mother's private wishes into another public weapon. To William, some memories were too sacred to be dragged into a battle with the institution. Yet Harry believed silence had always protected the palace. In his eyes, William's loyalty to royal secrecy was becoming impossible to separate from loyalty to the people who had failed their mother. Then, William reached a handwritten note attached to the briefing. It came from a senior courtier and carried a chilling instruction. The Duke must not be allowed an uncontrolled platform beside the heir. William reportedly rejected the cruelty of the wording, but he did not ignore the warning. Instead, he asked whether Harry could be stopped from changing his speech once he reached the stage. The advisors could offer no guarantee. They could control the approved pages. They could not control the man holding them. For the first time, cancellation became more than a possibility. It became the safest option. Then William turned to the final page and found an even darker allegation. The disputed keepsake was about to be transferred somewhere Harry could no longer reach it. That transfer transformed the problem from a speech dispute into a race against time. Because Harry had discovered that the last physical link to his mother might disappear into a royal vault before he could challenge the decision. For William and Harry, the hidden object was never merely a jewel. It represented the final question their family had avoided for decades. Who had the right to control Diana's memory? As the proposed transfer approached, the brothers found themselves fighting over far more than inheritance. The keepsake was not famous. Diana had not worn it at grand ceremonies or major royal occasions. It had belonged to the quieter part of her life, making its meaning deeply personal. That privacy gave it a power no public treasure could match. It was linked not to the crown, but to the woman William and Harry remembered as their mother. After Diana's death, her possessions were separated through legal duties, family decisions, royal customs, and private arrangements that were never fully explained to her sons. Some items were released. Others remained protected. A few entered a gray area where memory, ownership, and palace authority became almost impossible to separate. Harry believed the keepsake had been placed under temporary protection until both brothers were old enough to decide its future together. William had received different advice. He was told the object should remain tied to the direct line of succession so it could be preserved for future generations. That interpretation cut Harry deeply. It appeared to suggest that William's children had a stronger right to Diana's memory than Harry or his children. To Harry, their mother belonged equally to both sons. Titles, rank, and position should never decide who inherited her private symbols. William feared something else. He worried Harry might take the keepsake out of Britain, display it for public attention, discuss it in a documentary, or use it as proof that the palace had mistreated Diana's memory. Harry saw those fears as a personal insult. In his eyes, William now treated every emotional request as part of a media plan. Weeks before the appearance, Harry asked through representatives for the transfer to be delayed until the brothers could meet. William refused to discuss what he called palace property through lawyers. Harry's response was short and devastating. It was not palace property when their mother wore it. The conversation ended there. That left the planned appearance as Harry's final chance to force recognition of the dispute without openly breaking legal restrictions. When his proposed speech included the phrase, "What families owe the dead," William immediately saw a warning. He believed Harry intended to expose the keepsake controversy before the world. William was trapped between two dangers. He could allow the appearance and risk a public ambush, or cancel it and appear to prove that the palace used silence whenever the truth became uncomfortable. He chose cancellation. But instead of burying the secret, the decision pushed it closer to the surface. William believed withdrawing from the appearance would contain the danger, yet by sunrise, Harry's team had obtained proof that the cancellation was not about scheduling, and someone inside the palace was preparing to leak the real reason. The palace had survived scandals by controlling the first explanation. This time, that control lasted less than an hour. Before officials could finalize their statement, a message reached Harry's team proving William had cancelled personally, and the source appeared to be someone working inside the future king's own household. William's office moved quickly. A neutral announcement was prepared, blaming unavoidable changes to the program while insisting that both brothers remained committed to the purpose of the event. The language was calm, polished, and designed to close the story before questions could begin. Harry's team refused to approve it. They argued that the statement hid the most important fact. William had withdrawn after raising concerns about Harry's speech. Calling it a scheduling problem would make the cancellation seem harmless, while quietly placing Harry under suspicion. To his advisors, it was not damage control. It was a trap. Then, the confidential message appeared. Event organizers had been told that William would not share a platform with Harry under the present circumstances. Those words destroyed the official explanation. This was not an unavoidable conflict. It was a personal decision, made because William no longer trusted what Harry might say. Harry's advisors urged him to release the message at once. It would prove he had not caused a simple timetable change and expose the palace's attempt to hide the truth. But Harry hesitated. Once the message became public, any remaining chance of speaking privately with William might disappear. At the same time, William received an even more alarming warning. Reporters were asking questions about Diana's disputed keepsake. That meant the sealed briefing had also been compromised. Someone knew about the speech, someone knew about the object, and someone wanted the two stories to collide. Suspicion spread rapidly. William's staff blamed Harry's representatives. Harry's side blamed senior courtiers. The king's advisors feared a third force was feeding each office just enough information to deepen the conflict. The king's office ordered both sides to stop speaking to the press. Neither fully obeyed. Each believed silence would allow the other to control the scandal. William saw the leaked message as proof that Harry could not be trusted. Harry saw the false statement as another attempt to make him appear unstable, reckless, and difficult. Event organizers then suggested that Harry attend alone. William's advisors strongly opposed it. A solo appearance could make Harry look calm and committed, while William appeared frightened or defeated. Harry refused to withdraw. He would attend without his brother, deliver the approved speech, and reject every question about the cancellation. His calm decision disturbed the palace more than anger would have. William began to wonder whether Harry had found another way to reveal the truth without naming the keepsake at all. Minutes before Harry was due to leave, an anonymous envelope reached his team. Inside was a photograph of the disputed object resting in a velvet case marked for transfer. On the back was a date. The transfer would happen the following morning. With the keepsake about to vanish and William refusing to stand beside him, Harry made a decision that would force the entire family to respond not through accusation, but through one carefully chosen sentence spoken before the cameras. Harry arrived alone, carrying no documents and making no public accusation. Palace officials briefly believed the danger had passed. Then he looked toward the empty place reserved for William and spoke one sentence that was not in the approved script, a sentence understood instantly by everyone inside the family. The empty place beside him said more than any palace statement could. William's absence was no longer hidden behind careful wording or claims of a scheduling problem. It had become proof of the distance between two brothers who had once been expected to protect each other. Harry began calmly. He thanked the organizers and spoke about duty, service, memory, and responsibility. He followed the approved remarks so closely that officials monitoring every word slowly began to relax. He did not name William. He did not mention Diana. He said nothing about inheritance, the cancelled appearance, or the keepsake marked for transfer. For several minutes, it seemed the palace had avoided disaster. Then, Harry reached the end of his prepared speech. He paused before adding one sentence. What is entrusted to two brothers should never be hidden by one. The words were controlled, but their meaning was explosive. Harry had revealed no document and named no disputed object. Yet the sentence was specific enough to suggest that the cancellation involved something shared, something inherited, and something one brother was accused of controlling alone. Reporters immediately connected it to the growing rumors. The sentence spread quickly, repeated without the surrounding speech because it carried the entire mystery by itself. Royal commentators began asking the question the palace feared most: what had been hidden? William understood the accusation instantly. Watching privately, he heard Harry's words as a claim that he had taken control of something belonging to them both. He felt betrayed, but also deeply shaken. Harry had not used the angry language William expected. There had been no attack, no raised voice, and no direct charge. That restraint made the message feel more believable. The king demanded answers from both sons. William argued that Harry had deliberately manipulated the event while pretending to respect the agreement. Harry insisted that he had revealed nothing confidential. He had spoken only about a principle. The palace tried to return attention to the event's charitable purpose, but the attempt failed. William's cancellation and Harry's sentence dominated the conversation. Public opinion divided sharply. Some believed William had protected the monarchy from a planned ambush. Others believed Harry had been silenced because he was challenging palace control. Then a former royal employee anonymously confirmed that a disagreement existed over an object connected to Diana. The controversy was no longer dismissed as wild speculation. William's office considered releasing evidence that Harry had prepared a harsher version of the speech, but exposing it would also prove that palace officials had monitored and restricted his words. Before they could decide, Harry received an unexpected private message. William wanted to meet before the keepsake was transferred. For the first time since the cancellation, the brothers would meet without cameras, advisors, or prepared statements, but the conversation waiting behind palace doors would expose a deeper betrayal neither had suspected. William expected anger. Harry expected another warning. Instead, their private meeting uncovered a possibility more disturbing than either brother's accusations: the sealed briefing, the leaked message, and the photograph of Diana's keepsake may have come from the same person, someone determined to prevent reconciliation at any cost. They met late that evening in a secure palace room. No aides were allowed inside. No phones, notes, or recording devices were permitted. For once, there would be no carefully prepared statements and no advisors speaking in their place. There were only two brothers carrying years of anger into the same conversation. William spoke first. He accused Harry of breaking the speech agreement and turning the event into a public attack. Harry answered that William had broken something deeper. He had cancelled without calling, without explaining, and without giving his own brother a chance to speak. The argument quickly moved beyond the event. William said Harry had made a habit of turning private pain into public pressure. Harry replied that William used royal rules whenever he wanted to avoid personal responsibility. Every old wound entered the room at once. Yet before the confrontation could collapse, Harry placed the anonymous photograph of the keepsake between them. William's reaction changed everything. He had never seen the transfer label. He had not approved the date written on the back. More disturbing still, the sealed briefing had claimed that Harry already possessed that exact photograph before the cancellation. Harry insisted it had arrived only minutes before he left for the event. They began comparing what each had been told. William had been warned that Harry planned to expose the dispute before the world. Harry had been led to believe William intended to remove the keepsake permanently and place it beyond his reach. Both stories had been designed to create fear. Both had worked. The transfer had been approved through an obscure administrative channel linked to a senior courtier who had served the late Queen and now advised the King. This official reportedly believed that anything connected to Diana had to remain under strict palace control. Her possessions carried more than memory. They could create loyalty outside the authority of the crown. That was when the brothers understood the trap. Their distrust had not simply been observed. It had been used. If they remained divided, neither could challenge the transfer together. William admitted he had cancelled because he feared a public ambush. Harry admitted he had considered speaking more directly, but stopped, because he did not want to damage the event. Then, Harry said what William had not expected. He did not want the keepsake for publicity. He wanted proof that their mother had not been swallowed completely by royal history. William confessed that he feared losing it too. He believed keeping it within the succession was the safest way to protect it. For one brief moment, they were not the heir and the outsider. They were Diana's sons. They agreed to halt the transfer and demand every authorization connected to it. But when William contacted his office, the answer came back almost immediately. The keepsake had already been moved. The brothers had finally identified the manipulation, but their understanding came too late. Diana's keepsake was gone. The official responsible had disappeared from the palace, and one final document suggested the cancellation had been planned long before William gave the order. William believed the cancellation was his own decision. The final document proved otherwise. Weeks before the appearance, a palace strategy had already predicted that the brothers would be separated. Harry would speak alone, and public anger would bury the transfer of Diana's keepsake beneath another family scandal. The memorandum had been prepared before the final terms of the joint appearance were even agreed. It listed several possible outcomes, but one stood apart because it matched what had happened with chilling accuracy. William would withdraw at the last moment. Officials would blame an unavoidable program change. Harry would appear alone, say something emotional, and the public would focus on the brothers' broken relationship instead of asking where Diana's keepsake had gone. This was not simple planning. It was manipulation. The document even recommended that Harry's reaction be used to justify tighter controls on any future appearance involving both brothers. If he spoke with anger, he could be called reckless. If he remained calm, his words could still be described as calculated. Either way, the palace would gain another reason to keep the brothers apart. William was forced to confront a brutal truth. He had believed he was protecting the crown from Harry. In reality, his fears had been understood, guided, and used by people who knew exactly how he would respond. His position as heir had not protected him from the machinery of the monarchy. It had made him easier to control. Harry faced an equally painful realization. Public resistance had always felt like his strongest weapon, but every angry response also helped the institution describe him as dangerous. The harder he fought to escape palace control, the easier it became for officials to use that struggle against him. The keepsake was eventually traced to a secure royal collection. It had not been destroyed or sold, but its legal position had been buried beneath private agreements and royal authority. Neither brother could remove it without beginning a larger battle over ownership, inheritance, and the limits of the crown. William proposed a compromise. The object would be placed in a trust controlled jointly for the children of both brothers. It would not belong only to the direct line of succession, and it could not be displayed, loaned, or moved without approval from both sides. Harry agreed on one condition. The arrangement had to recognize that the keepsake had first belonged to Diana as a woman and mother, not as property of the institution she married into. The king approved a temporary settlement. It was not reconciliation. William and Harry did not suddenly forget the accusations, public wounds, or years of distrust. But for the first time, they had prevented the palace from deciding everything for them. The official explanation never changed. The cancelled appearance remained a scheduling issue. The sealed briefing was never acknowledged. The hidden strategy was never released. Yet one final message was discovered among the missing courtiers' papers. It contained only a single sentence: "They are most dangerous to the institution when they remember they are brothers." The appearance never happened, the official truth never changed, and the brothers never publicly revealed what was taken. But from that day forward, every royal cancellation carried a darker question: who had truly made the decision? Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel for more hidden royal stories, secret jewels, palace betrayals, and mysteries the monarchy would rather keep locked away.